Star Trek wanted two different Chris Pine, Captain Kirk comebacks. Star Trek wanted Chris Pine's Captain James T. Kirk to make two different comebacks, but unfortunately neither could happen. Pine and the cast of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek 2009 proved the iconic crew of Star Trek, the original series' USS Enterprise, could be successfully recast with younger actors. Pine became the first actor to play Captain Kirk other than William Shatner, embodying the captain of the Enterprise in 3 movies produced by J.J. Abrams, the last being Star Trek Beyond in 2016. Star Trek on Paramount Plus has brought back numerous Star Trek legacy actors and characters, including the cast of Star Trek: The Next Generation in Star Trek Picard Season 3, and most of Star Trek Voyager's cast led by Kate Mulgrew as Admiral Catherine Janeway in Star Trek Prodigy. Star Trek's animated series, Star Trek Lower Decks and Star Trek Prodigy, have made it easier for aging Star Trek actors to simply voice their characters while appearing at whatever age that's appropriate for the 24th century. Even George Takei reprised Captain Hikaru Sulu in a Star Trek Lower Decks dream sequence. But Chris Pine's Captain Kirk appears to be animated Star Trek's White Whale. Star Trek Lower Decks wanted Chris Pine's Captain Kirk to appear. Star Trek Lower Decks' creator and showrunner Mike McMahon wanted Chris Pine to reprise Captain Kirk in the animated comedy. On stage at Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5's premiere event at Newport Beach Film Festival alongside Star Trek Lower Decks actors Jerry O'Connell, Noel Wells, and Eugene Cordero, in a panel moderated by Scott Mantz, McMahon surprised and delighted the audience by explaining his aborted idea to bring in Chris Pine as Captain Kirk. Watch the video below as Mike McMahon explained Star Trek Lower Decks is a Rosetta Stone that contains enough references and Easter eggs that a layman can grasp the wider Star Trek universe. Captain Kirk is arguably the most iconic Star Trek captain and the most well-known alongside Patrick Stewart's Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Before Paul Wesley became Lt. James T. Kirk on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Kirk was conspicuously missing from Star Trek on Paramount Plus. Meanwhile, Chris Pine is more popular with the general audience who saw J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies. Chris Pine on Star Trek Lower Decks is certainly a fascinating missed opportunity, but many issues prevented it from happening. Star Trek Prodigy's creators also harbored an unfulfilled idea to incorporate Chris Pine's Captain Kirk into Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. A sweeping epic about saving Star Trek's multiverse from annihilation, Star Trek Prodigy Season 2's Episode 14, Cracked Mirror, saw the young crew of the USS Protostar led by Captain Chakotay Robert Beltran visit a handful of alternate realities, including the Mirror Universe. In an exclusive interview with Screen Rant, Star Trek Prodigy co-executive producer Aaron J. Waldke explains their idea to bring in Chris Pine's Captain Kirk. Read Aaron's quote below. "The vastness of space holds infinite possibilities, but rarely does it give rise to something as bewildering as the reappearance of a long-lost Captain Kirk." The year is 2275. The Federation is expanding, reaching further into the uncharted quadrants of the galaxy. But the darkness of the unknown always brings new dangers. Amidst this, something extraordinary occurs that forces Starfleet into an unprecedented situation to Captain James Tiberius Kirks. Act I, the Discovery, the USS Enterprise, under the command of Captain James T. Kirk, Chris Pine is deep into a mission in the Beta Quadrant, investigating unusual gravitational anomalies around a distant planet. The anomalies disrupt the ship's systems, forcing them to land on a mysterious planet covered in dense fog and towering mountains. As the away team begins exploring the terrain, they stumble upon something impossible, an older version of Captain Kirk, scarred from years of conflict, but undeniably alive. This Kirk seems to have appeared out of thin air, wearing a Starfleet uniform long out of commission, his eyes hardened by experience. This is not just a mere imposter or doppelganger. This is the original James T. Kirk, thought to have been lost to the Nexus, a temporal anomaly that once trapped him in a timeless void. Captain Kirk, younger, orders the older Kirk to be taken aboard the Enterprise, where medical exams confirm what they feared. Both men are the same person. But how can there be two of them in the same timeline? And why now? Act 2. Conflict of command. As soon as the two Kirks come face to face, the room electrifies with tension. They are both James T. Kirk, both sure of their place in the universe, but neither willing to back down from his authority. Starfleet has only one rule for such paradoxes: if two versions of the same person exist, the one from the current timeline retains command. But it's easier said than done. Kirk, younger, I don't care where you came from or what you've been through. I'm the captain of this ship, and I will do what's necessary to protect the crew and complete our mission. Kirk, older, grinning, you always were a little too eager, weren't you? I've been doing this a lot longer than you have, kid. And let me tell you, there are things out there you haven't even imagined yet. If you keep rushing in like that, you're going to get us all killed. The two exchange a long, knowing look. The crew watches nervously from the sidelines, two men so alike, yet representing two entirely different phases of life. The younger Kirk is brimming with confidence and bravado, while the older Kirk's words carry the weight of decades of experience and tragedy. Act 3, the Nexus revealed after a heated debate in the Enterprise's briefing room. Spock, Zachary Quinto, theorizes that the anomalies surrounding the planet are connected to the Nexus, a mysterious energy ribbon capable of crossing time and space. Somehow, the Nexus has caused a rift in the timeline, bringing the older Kirk into the current reality. To prevent the collapse of this rift, they need to return him to his original timeline. But things take a darker turn when they discover that the gravitational anomalies are not natural. They are the result of a rogue faction of Romulans who have been experimenting with Nexus technology, hoping to harness its power to manipulate time and rewrite history. Their leader, a ruthless Romulan warlord, has learned of the two Kirks and sees an opportunity to exploit their paradox for his own gain. The crew quickly finds themselves in a race against time. With the older Kirk aboard, the Romulans plan to abduct him and use him as a bargaining chip. His knowledge of Starfleet's future operations is invaluable. But as tensions rise, the two Kirks begin to find common ground. Act 4, Two Kirks. One mission during an emergency in engineering. When the ship's core becomes unstable due to Romulan sabotage, the two Kirks are forced to work together. It's a trial by fire, pushing them both to their limits. Kirk, younger, yelling over the alarms, "You have to override the containment fields. We'll be incinerated if that core breaches." Kirk, older, calmly working the controls, I know. You don't have to shout, kid. It's just like that mess on Axanar. Remember that? Of course you don't, you haven't lived it yet. For the first time, the younger Kirk hesitates, realizing that this man knows his future, his fate. Yet in that moment, he also sees the future he can become, the wisdom, the resilience, the understanding that comes with time. The two Kirks, both captains of the Enterprise, finally find respect for one another. Together, they stabilize the core and prevent disaster. Act V, the final decision. With the ship secure and the Romulan threat neutralized, the time has come to return the older Kirk to the Nexus, restoring balance to the timeline. But it's not an easy decision. The crew, especially Spock and McCoy, have grown attached to this alternate Kirk, who represents the legacy of Starfleet's greatest hero. Kirk, younger, you could stay. We could find a way to work this out. You don't have to go back. Kirk, older, softly smiling, that's not how it works, Jim. I had my time. You're the one who gets to shape the future now. But trust me, when you get to where I am, you'll understand. The universe always has a way of teaching you what you need to know. As the older Kirk steps into the Nexus once more, the rift closes, leaving the younger Kirk standing alone on the bridge, a little wiser, a little more grounded. He knows that his journey has only just begun, and that the legacy of James T. Kirk will continue through him.